Usually, I mean, a medical diagnosis is pretty precise. You have a broken arm and the x-ray shows a jagged white line. It's binary, and honestly, that's kind of comforting.
Yeah, we like things visible and neatly categorized.
Exactly. But step into the world of ancient relics and that crisp x-ray machine just sort of shatters. We're looking at a really murky historical landscape today. So, welcome to today's custom deep dive, built just for you.
And just to jump in real quick before we get too deep, as a heads up to you listening, our job today is literally just to break down the claims in this specific research paper. We aren't endorsing any religious viewpoints. We're just impartially reporting the actual source material.
Right, exactly. We're just conveying what's there. So we're unpacking this massive document that tries to merge quantum physics with biblical texts regarding the Shroud of Turin. They call it a dual witness paradigm.
Yeah, it's a wild concept.
It is. So let's unpack this. What actually happens when ancient mysteries meet modern quantum metrics? I mean, to even understand the textual analysis they did, we have to look at the sheer physical constraints of the shroud itself, right?
Yeah, because the physical artifact is just baffling. The image on this linen is incredibly superficial. I mean, it only penetrates the uppermost fibrils to a depth of like 0.2 micrometers.
It is unimaginably thin.
Right. And the paper proposes it was formed by a vacuum ultraviolet, or VUV, radiation burst of maybe 6 to 8 billion watts.
Yeah.
And it lasted under 1/40 billionth of a second.
Wait, 6 to 8 billion watts?
Yeah.
That's like a cosmic flashbulb exposing a photograph. But with that much raw energy, why didn't the cloth just, instantly vaporize into ash?
Well, because we're talking about a burst of pure electromagnetic light energy that entirely lacks conventional kinetic heat.
Oh, God.
So think of it like getting a sunburn versus touching a hot stove. It wasn't baking the cloth with heat. The sheer energy of the light was instantly altering the chemical bonds of just that top microscopic layer of fibers.
Which leads to the mechanical transparency theory in the paper. Because Dr. John Sottosanti actually discovered the distinct outline of lower teeth visible through the closed lips on the image.
Right, meaning the body had to be emitting X-ray-like radiation from within. The theory suggests the body underwent this sort of quantum phase transition.
Like it became transparent.
Basically, yeah. It made outer tissues temporarily transparent while searing denser internal structures, like those teeth, straight onto the collapsing linen.
Wow. But if this massive hyperspecific radiation event actually happened, how does that even square with the timeline? Because I distinctly remember the shroud being carbon dated back in the 80s to the Middle Ages.
Yeah, in 1988 to be exact. But recent tests completely bypass carbon-14 dating. Instead, researchers used WXS crystallography.
WAXS crystallography.
Yeah, so basically they bounced X-rays off the linen to measure how much the actual cellulose molecules had structurally decayed over time.
Okay, so they were looking at physical wear and tear at the molecular level, rather than relying on carbon isotopes.
Exactly. And that structural wear and tear provides a completely independent timeline. It turns out that degradation profile perfectly matches a securely authenticated first-century linen from Masada.
Wait, but if the degradation clearly matches the first century, why did the 1988 test say it was medieval?
Because of something called neutron activation. The hypothesis here is that this massive particle radiation burst interacted with the nitrogen in the linen to essentially artificially synthesize new carbon-14.
Oh, wow. So the intense radiation essentially hacked the fabric's isotopic clock to make it look centuries younger to a standard carbon-14 test.
That is exactly the claim. And here's where the researchers asked a pretty wild question. They wanted to know, does this hyperspecific X-ray emitting physical event show up in the historical texts? So to find out, they built an algorithm.
Right, the SHIELD 14.0 protocol. I read about this part. They ran cryptographic randomization on a locked corpus of 34,211 biblical verses to search for thematic convergences.
Which is a massive data set.
Huge! And it found massive statistical anomalies, like a 1 in 13 trillion chance that these verses would group together mathematically, linking a luminous temple body directly to the physical evidence we see on the shroud.
Yeah, a 1 in 13 trillion chance.
But I have to push back here for a second. Can algorithms truly define a transphysical body? Or is this just pareidolia? Humans finding patterns in random noise, like seeing faces in clouds.
Well, the researchers actually anticipated that exact critique.
Mm-hmm.
The SHIELD study used strict false discovery rate controls. So they relied on cryptographic entropy derived from computer hardware to...
Whoa, wait, slow down. Cryptographic entropy derived from computer hardware. You're going to have to translate that for me.
Fair enough. It just means they use the unpredictable physical thermal noise inside the computer's chips to generate true randomness.
Oh, so it ensured the algorithm wasn't secretly programmed with human confirmation bias.
Right. It was physically impossible for a human to cherry-pick the verses. Yet the algorithms independently grouped verses describing a body radiating intense light and passing through matter.
Mirroring the exact physics required to scorch that submicron layer of flax. That is fascinating. So what does this all mean for you listening? I think this research really challenges those rigid boundaries we've built separating quantum biology, material science, and classical texts.
I completely agree. It really forces us to ask if these entirely different disciplines are actually describing the exact same phenomenon, just using different vocabularies.
Which leaves you with this to mull over today. If a macro quantum phase transition, a massive shift in physical state at a human-sized level, could hypothetically imprint an anatomical blueprint onto first-century flax, what other seemingly impossible historical myths might actually be literal records of undiscovered quantum physics? Maybe that crisp, clean X-ray machine of modern science still has a few new frequencies left to discover.